I have here a globe which says 21 watts on the side here. That's an indication of its luminosity. That's how much energy it's giving out every second. 21 watts, that's 21 joules per second, its luminosity. Now that luminosity doesn't change, doesn't matter how far away it is from me. So if I move it right away, okay, its luminosity doesn't change. But what does change for me is its brightness. And what do we mean by its brightness? Well, its brightness is how much energy from that light is reaching me. And how to measure that? That would be in joules per square metre per second. That is its brightness. That is its intensity, its light intensity. What we're going to do, or what you are going to do, I hope, is to investigate the relationship, the connection between brightness and the distance. That is, how the brightness changes with the distance from the globe. Now, in order to do that, we need a couple of things. First of all, a light sensor. This is the light sensor, and the light comes in there. Our light sensor is connected to the data logger. So here is the interface of the data logger, and we connect this into the port here. Now, I'm looking at this groove that it's at the top here. So I'll put that at the top, and that will enable me to push that in like that. Now, the next thing that this data logger needs is some power, and the power inlet comes from this connection here. So that goes in there, and then this data logger has to be connected to the computer. Now, to do that, we use this lead. And you can see the USB connection there. So that goes in the back here, and upside down there. So there it is there. Now the other end of this, the USB, goes into the computer. So I'm going to put that into the computer. What we now need to do with our light sensor is to situate it in front of the globe. So here's the equipment all set up, and you can use what you see here now to create your labelled diagram to go into your prac book. Now the next step is to set up the computer. Now that I've got the light sensor in place, we can now start the software. So this is the Pasco Capstone icon. I double click on that, 2 clicks, and this is what opens up. Now you can see over here that it starts to flash where it says hardware setup. That is the first thing I've got to click on. So I click on that, and it says searching for wireless devices. So eventually, it takes a moment or two, but the icon there comes up, or the interface comes up. And what I need to do is click on this one here, this port here, where the light sensor is connected. And I click on that, and I get a drop-down menu. And I go down here, and I find light sensor. So I click on light sensor, and what happens then is I can see this green line. Now that's a sign that things are connected okay. If it's red, then there's a problem and you might need to see your teacher. Now this window here we can close by moving up here to where this white cross is, and I close that. Now the next thing I want to do is go right across here to the top right hand corner where it's got graph, and click twice. Click, click. Now this gives me a graph, and I've got to tell the graph what to measure. So I click here, and it only gives me one option, and that's light intensity. So I click on light intensity, and then I've got some numbers there. Now, if you have a look at the cursor here, you can see that it's a hand. Now, if it's a hand like that, and I can click and hold and move the screen here so that the zero is, the line there is in line with 0. Now I'm ready to click here, record, but before I do, I just want to show you how the sensor is arranged. Now I'm ready to record, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click here on this red record button, and you can see up the top here that it started to record the intensity of the light. What I'm going to do over here is I have placed the light in line with the 30. And I'm going to move it now 5 centimetres away each time from the sensor. So I'm moving it there to 35 and waiting for the line to plateau, the intensity to plateau. And then I'll move it to 40. So that's 40 just there. Then I'll move it to 45 and make sure that I'm in line there with the 45. Then move it to 50. Then move it to 55. Move it then to 60. Move it to 65.
Move it then to 70.
Now by this time you can see that there's not a great deal of change in the intensity of the light.
So that's 70. I'm moving it now to 80. Sorry, to 75. Then moving to 80. I'll try 85. And then to 90. Waiting for that light to plateau. And then finally 95. And 100. Okay, there's my 100 there. So that's given me a series going from 30 to 100, intervals of 5.
What I need to do now is to stop the recording, so I go over here to the red button, click that. What I want to know now is the intensity of the light at different positions here. So have a look at this particular icon here. If I click on this, it says add a coordinate tool. So I'm going to click on that and then click add coordinates. So I click on that, and you can see here that I've got a little square, and that square I'm going to move up here and put on the top position up here. I'll just move this, compress this down a little bit, and I'll move it to here because I think that's a more reliable spot for the intensity, and you might be able to see what that is there. Now I'm going to do that for the rest of these, so I'll click on here, add coordinates, and move, find the square. Sometimes it's a little bit tricky to find, so there it is there. I'll put it on the edge here of that plateau area, and I'll do the same for the rest of these going right down here. Now the next thing I'm going to do is put the distance on the graph, and the way I'm doing that is first of all clicking on the red letter here, the red A, moving down here to take hold of this square I'm moving it up here to the first reading which I've got, and that is our 30 centimetres. So what I'm going to do in here is type in the length in metres, which is 0.3. And again, I'll put in the next reading for distance, which was 35. Moving them over here, 0.35 metres. I'm going to fill those in for the rest of the distances. Now the next task is to print this sheet off and then use the data to create a graph. Now in order to do that, we need to go up here first of all to File, and then down here to Print Page Setup. And the reason for this is we need to change the reading here to Landscape and then click OK. Otherwise we'll find that this sits at the top of a table and the top of a page and is too small to see. So here's something that I need to get rid of. Right, so we can then go to File and down here to Print Preview if we like, just to make sure everything's going to look okay. So there it is, light intensity there and time down here. So that's okay. So I'll close that. Come back up here, File, down here to Print. Now in this room here, the room that I'm in at the moment is 336, so I'll need to click here to select the printer, so I've got to move this across here, and now you can see here 336. So if I click on that and then click Print, then this will then print off. Once I've got that, and it's coming through the printer in a moment, the next step is to graph the results. We'll have a look at that.
So the data has now been copied there, and you can see the units that have been used. Here, first of all, we've got distance in metres, I've got the label, and I've got the units. Over here, label and units. This data now has to be graphed over here with distance on the x-axis and intensity, our dependent variable, on the y-axis. So we've now got the graph drawn. So you notice first of all we got a title, and down here we've got a label and the units, label and the units, and we've got a graph of that shape. Our task now is to draw a second graph, one that will produce a straight line or a linear relationship. So we've got to decide here what we can put here in order to get a straight line. We can see here that there seems to be some kind of inverse relationship between intensity and distance. In other words, the greater the intensity, the smaller the distance. The greater the distance, the smaller the intensity. What we might expect is an inverse relationship. So we could try graphing intensity versus 1 over distance. Alternatively, we could try graphing intensity against 1 over distance squared. See what shape we get. So we've done this exercise on paper. Another option is to do it to process the data using a spreadsheet. This makes it a whole lot easier. Look at the next video to see how you can do this using a spreadsheet.